There's been so much fuss in the crypto market recently. Everyone is upbeat about a spot Bitcoin ETF, which is yet to be approved by the SEC. Expectations mixed with optimism are rolling, and it seems like everyone has something to say. Even the Bitcoin price has suffered a little. So is a spot Bitcoin ETF that huge of a deal? In the early hours of September 1st, the negative price movement reversed the bullish gains in Bitcoin following the grayscale court decision. This was what happened. On August 29th, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit overturned the SEC's decision to block Grayscale from converting its Bitcoin Trust, GBTC, to a spot Bitcoin ETF, commanding that the commission to review the application again. The ruling raised hopes of an imminent approval, thus pushing Bitcoin the price to peak near around $28,000. However, another delay from the securities regulator crushed the market's optimism, sending Bitcoin prices back towards $26,000. Ethereum follows suit with a 3.5% dip. The SEC has delayed decisions on Bitcoin's ETF applications, including those from BlackRock, until mid-October. BlackRock's Bitcoin-backed ETF proposal was affected, citing industry complexity and fraud concerns. Of course, recent court rulings raised hopes, but the Bitcoin price dropped 4% to $26,000 due to the SEC delay. Now, the SEC has announced a further delay in deciding on the approval of various spot Bitcoin ETF applications, which affected several prominent applications including BlackRock, WisdomTree, Invesco Galaxy, Wise Origin, Banek, Bitwise, and Valkyrie Digital Assets. Yes, global asset manager BlackRock is caught up in this holdup. With over $8.5 trillion in assets under management, BlackRock has tendered an application to the Bitcoin-backed ETF in partnership with Coinbase as the intended custodian for the fund's Bitcoin holding. BlackRock's filing emphasized the benefits of offering shares in an ETF format, which will help bypass the complexities and operational challenges associated with a direct investment in Bitcoin. However, SEC Chair Gary Gensler's stance against approving Bitcoin ETFs has been consistent, citing concerns about protecting investors from potential fraud within the industry. So it seems that this is where all the fuss is coming from. Also, the regulatory decision followed a recent court ruling that was interpreted as clearing a pathway for the much-anticipated Bitcoin ETF. However, the delay caused disappointment among advocates, hence explaining the drop of over 4% in the price of Bitcoin. Several leading figures in the world of finance have expressed optimism about the approval of a spot Bitcoin exchange-traded fund soon. Among these voices are ARK Invest CEO Cathie Wood and blockchain investor OD Kobo. In a recent interview, Cathie Wood said, "I think the SEC, if it's going to approve a Bitcoin ETF, will approve more than one at once." This prediction offered hope to many who have been eagerly awaiting for regulatory approval of such financial instruments. OD Kobo, who led a $50 million investment in Bitcoin way back in 2018, was one of the UK's first institutional investors to enter the space, and he has also been bullish about the prospects. Supporting his claim with information from insiders at top-tier asset management firms BlackRock and Invesco, Kobo said, "It's not a question of if, but when one of the 8 currently outstanding applications for a spot Bitcoin ETF will receive SEC approval." He further speculated that the timeline for such approval could be between 4 to 6 months. It's important to note that ARK Invest isn't just commenting from the sidelines. Remember that the firm, alongside industry heavyweights Invesco and BlackRock, is among the entities that have lodged applications for a spot Bitcoin ETF. In the past, attempts to introduce such ETFs have been chaotic and bedeviled with resistance from the SEC. However, there seems to be a change in sentiment this time around. The introduction of the BlackRock into the mix has ushered in renewed hopes. The firm's move in mid-June to apply for a spot Bitcoin fund sent ripples throughout the financial markets, signaling a possible shift in regulatory winds. While spot Bitcoin ETFs have faced regulatory hurdles, the SEC has shown leniency towards Bitcoin future-based ETFs, offering a glimmer of hope to enthusiasts. Furthermore, ARK Investment Management is reportedly ahead in the race for a spot Bitcoin exchange-traded fund. It's touted as the first in line, so to speak. Nonetheless, several reports suggest that BlackRock could become the first issuer of a spot Bitcoin ETF in the United States, if it receives approval, but that might not be the case, according to some executives and analysts. Other applicants will be able to amend their filings with similar agreements at little cost. An ARK analyst reportedly said, this analyst stressed that ARK and the European asset manager 21 Shares filed an application with the SEC for a spot Bitcoin ETF in April. That now is the only one ahead of BlackRock, the analyst said. More industry observers, including Bloomberg Intelligence ETF analyst James Seyfarth, argued that ARK and 21 Shares should be ahead of anyone for a spot Bitcoin ETF. Perhaps in an attempt to be modest, Cathie Wood explained that the SEC, if it plans to approve a spot Bitcoin ETF at all, might be planning to make such a move by approving more than one related product at the same time. As a result, her position that multiple ETFs will be approved simultaneously contradicted the generally perceived claims that her firm will be among the first to be approved to float a spot Bitcoin ETF. The volatility of the subject of a spot Bitcoin ETF approval has triggered a lot of noise, both within the crypto ecosystem and in the regulatory world. A lot of companies are in the race to get their spot Bitcoin ETFs approved, with the commission rejecting their proposal because the industry is immature and may be subject to price manipulation. So, is the spot Bitcoin ETF worth all the trouble? Well, an exchange-traded fund, or ETF for short, is a type of investment that tracks a specific asset or commodity, and in this case, Bitcoin. ETFs can be bought and sold on stock exchanges and brokerage accounts, with the custody of the underlying asset being held by the manager of the ETF. This gives investors the chance to get price exposure to Bitcoin without having to worry about the self-custody or figuring out how to use a Bitcoin exchange. This would potentially give traditional investors peace of mind since they could purchase shares of a spot Bitcoin ETF directly through their familiar brokerage accounts. There are many types of Bitcoin ETFs available, and the futures ETFs have had the most success in being approved by the SEC thus far, but these track future contracts for the expected price of Bitcoin at a later date. The contracts do not convey Bitcoin ownership, and the contracts must be settled or traded for new contracts as they approach expiration, hence the struggle for a Bitcoin ETF. There are many proponents for a spot Bitcoin ETF, and numerous applicants have made and denied in the past. As noted earlier, there might be a change this time around since BlackRock is involved. Various experts have presented their predictions about the situation. In an exclusive interview on Fox Business, Kraken CEO Dave Ripley discussed the outlook for crypto ETFs in the US market. While confident approval is inevitable, Ripley warned that the unpredictable posture of the regulator makes the timing vague. Regardless of the growing clamor from investors, the commission continues to put off decisions. The SEC is not the most predictable, he said. Nevertheless, Riley remains hopeful one of these in the queue will get through, potentially even in 2023. He believes the approval could happen at some point next year. Plus, the sluggish pace of adoption in the US stands in contrast to other regions that have embraced crypto ETFs. Critics contend that the SEC's hesitance stunts financial innovation and forces US investors to miss out on opportunities available abroad. However, the agency stood its ground, countering that existing filings lack adequate protection against manipulation and illicit activities. Meanwhile, Fundstrat co-founder Tom Lee is once again singing Bitcoin's tune, and this time proclaiming that the cryptocurrency is likely to hit over $150,000 by the end of 2024. Speaking during an interview with CNBC's Squawk Box, Lee suggested that a string of Bitcoin spot ETF approvals would shift Bitcoin's supply-demand dynamics towards substantial price increases. He noted that the SEC's nod on these sought-after investment vehicles has no other choice but to catapult Bitcoin to $150,000, even reaching the $180,000 mark. If the spot Bitcoin ETF gets approved, I think the demand will be greater than the daily supply of Bitcoin. So the clearing price, which is done by our crypto digital strategist, is over $150,000. It could even be like $180,000, he specifically explained. According to Lee, Bitcoin ETFs have gained traction globally, but an endorsement by US regulators would undoubtedly be a huge milestone for the cryptocurrency sector. We love the idea of a milestone, but what if more troubled waters are stirred? Most of the prominent companies in the crypto world are waiting for approval of a spot Bitcoin ETF. What if the situation slips beyond control? These are potential fears, right? Well, for now, we'll just keep watching to see how things turn out. But that's going to do it for today's video. Make sure you click on the subscribe notification buttons, and we'll see you in the next video.